Hey there, welcome to another episode of Music Life and Everything in Between with me, your host, Dave Does. What's on the agenda for today's 1 hour, 60 minutes of your time? And what happens in the next 60 minutes is completely off the cuff. I usually come in with one idea of something I want to talk about, and then it's just where my brain goes. I do these at around 5 a.m. in the morning. It's actually about 5:30 this morning. And it's your morning brain. It's where your head goes. It's like either late at night or first thing when you get up, because your brain is in a really interesting place at this sort of time of the day. You haven't had enough time for your caffeine to kick in. I'm actually working with protein shakes. No, I'm not trying to do muscle build, but I do find that I don't eat a lot of protein, and when I don't eat a lot of protein, I basically feel exhausted all the time. So yeah, protein is a very, very good thing for you to consume, even if you do eat on regular meals. If you're feeling fatigued a lot of the time, I find that having a protein shake, not as a meal replacement, but basically just as an additional one, actually does help. So just a little bit of tip there from Dave Does. Nutritional advice, it's music, life, everything in between, plus nutritional advice for you. Today's topic, though, I actually thought about the title of this show. So, Music Life. And then it started making me think back to when we've done reaction videos and stuff, and some of the comments and what people say. So Sleep Token's a great example of this. The amount of people are saying comments how Sleep Token changed their life. They were at a turning point. It was basically they were suicidal, or they just didn't get in life, or even teenagers. Specifically teenagers, I guess we tend to focus on, but people in later life as well, or escapism. And it's this thing that music is life, and I've seen that in I actually even had it on some Dave Does merch back in a few years ago. But music is also just entertainment. We don't really hear people go on about how cinema is life, do we? We don't really hear people go on about how a movie changed their life. I mean, there are movies that potentially could, I guess, if it's maybe a melodrama that you can relate to, or you can empathize with, or you have some sort of apathy towards. Not apathy, sorry, that's a really bad word to use, but I guess you know what I'm trying to say on that one. But I've always struggled. I mean, there were songs in my life that resonated with me for that moment, but it wasn't like the be all and end all. So when you were younger, when I was in my teenage years, and you feel gutted that the girl that you liked, and maybe it's a case of it was a boy that you liked, but in my case it was the girl that I liked in high school or whatever it might have been, didn't like me the way I liked them, and I'd listen to something like Aerosmith's What It Takes off of the Pump album. And that would be, I could listen to that and it'd make me feel sad and emotional. And that was weird, because I'd gone from feeling mildly sad to listening to that and making myself even feel sadder, but it felt appropriate for the time. And the question here then is would I felt, if I hadn't had that music to use as a crutch, would it have made any difference? I don't see people going, although actually people do say that that when they're feeling low, they want to watch a specific movie because it puts them in a happy place or a happier time. They curl up with ice cream, which is basically just the sugar rush, basically, is what you're after there. I can't do that. I'm partially lactose. I have lactose problems, even though I'm having a protein milkshake. So I can only have so much of that. But that's my everything in between, and it can be if I drink too much of that. So yeah, I mean, what is it with about music? Because I listen to so much music. In fact, I have to say I've slowed down a lot in recent times. I go back to the classics. I'm almost at the stage in my life where I feel like I have enough music in my life to see me to the end. I've got some great bands I love. I don't have that passion and joy that some people have of discovering new bands. It's amazing when you do, but for every 100 bands, there's probably one band that I actually really enjoy. Most of them, I'm like, you're a good band, your music's good and everything, but I've heard someone similar to you, or I've heard something that's within the same genre, and I already like them, and you're not adding anything new for me to spend more time focusing on you. And you get that a lot with the American rock bands like Three Doors Down and stuff like that. I don't really feel Nickelback and bands that sit of a similar ilk. They all kind of start to blend into one. American metalcore as well. They all start to sound the same. So when you've got a band like American metalcore or metal bands like Lamb of God, a phenomenal band. So anyone that comes along, you're like, well, to be honest, Lamb of God are a phenomenal band. I don't really need another Lamb of God in my collection. Machine Head, and again, great band. So other bands come along, don't really need it. Machine Head does everything I need, and that's why bands like the Big Four, Metallica and Megadeth and stuff are always around, because people love that classic sound. And new bands that come out, there's no need for them. Bear with me while I have a quick slurp of my drink, which is fine for you on the video, but if you're watching this or listening to this on the radio, it's a bit weird. Protein shakes always taste weird. It's like it's chocolate flavored protein shake, but it's like almost an oily texture it comes out with. It's a bit strange. So can music change your life? Can you wake up one day and feel a certain way and then listen to some piece of music and it have such a profound effect that you change how you are, change how you be? Or is it just the tipping point? Do you have to make certain other changes? So imagine being like you're thoroughly depressed, you hate your job, you're in a bad relationship, etc. Can you listen to a piece of music and make a change that suddenly you decide to leave that relationship or get a different job or move out? Is it just the one part of it that music can make that element? Because I think music does have the power, because it's the swell of emotion that comes from it. But there are so many fanatical fans that music is everything in their life. They go to every concert. I mean, I've never understood people that follow a band around on tour. So you see that with people like Taylor Swift fans, and you kind of, they've been like, she's out doing a 200 date tour or whatever it might be. I don't know. I think it's the Eras tour that she's on at the moment. But she goes out and she does all these tours, and there'll be people that will they'll follow her around America and go and see the show. I'm like, but it's the same show. What is it about you put your life savings in to go and watch someone sing? We struggle as promoters to get people to pay a fiver to go and watch 4 bands play. But you'll spend an absolute fortune to follow one round. Because in all honesty, Taylor Swift may be a great vocalist or a songwriter, but the songs they're emotional songs. They're not brilliant, and as far as I personally can hear, I've listened to a couple of albums. I listened to Red, and there was a 19 something, I can't remember, was it 1999 or some sort of album called that, and I listened to the tracks on both those albums, and I was like, okay, there's a couple of catchy hooky songs in there. Apart from that, very inconsequential. And then you got songs like Blank Space, good song, but again, it's just a pop song. There are so many pop songs. So what is it about Swiftie that gets everyone out and obsessed? Is it because you're part of for those people that music is life? It's not about the music. Music's such a small part. I think it's about being part of that collective, that crowd. Is that part of it? They say you should never drink on radio or camera. Sorry, I've got an hour to kill. I'm not going to get away with not doing that. Because at what point does it go from being, is it a case of you like the music initially, and then you get involved in the social groups, you get involved with the crowd, and you love being part of a community? And is it because you're part of that community that you fully embrace it, and then you feel you're one of them, one of us? Is that what it's all about? And then suddenly you're like, okay, I'm now part of this crowd, I'm part of this team, this is brilliant, and now I'm fanatical about it. Because that's where it goes as well. You go from being, I've talked about this, or we've talked about this on ADK, the difference between being a fan of a band and people being fanatical. Because fans don't call themselves fanatics, even though fan is just short for fanatical. So it's basically the same thing, it's just a shortening of the term. But I had historically always said that I was fans of a band, and I have to keep correcting myself, because I'm not fanatical about any band. There is no band out there that I would jump on my sword, chuck myself on top of a hand grenade for. Where there are fans out there for certain musicians and certain bands that genuinely will absolutely throw themselves on the sword for this band. They will defend them with honour, and if something came out, Michael Jackson was a great example of this. So when Michael Jackson had his court and trials and the allegations and stuff like that, people absolutely would defend him to the hill. They wouldn't listen, could do no wrong. Now we never know exactly what happened with all of that, so but people become the fanatics cannot see that there's a possibility this person could have done wrong. And I'm not going to really get into the Michael Jackson thing, but it's a difficult one when you see people have gone to that level of fanaticism. Then for them, music is life, but I don't think it's the music anymore. Because that person could not play music all day and they would still defend them to the hill. You'll see Swifties who absolutely talk about how she's... I mean, Taylor Swift got rated in the top 10 guitarists. How the hell has she... I mean, when you genuinely look through musicians who play guitar and the guitarists out there, I mean, even if you take out rock and metal guitarists and just look at some of the fingerstyle guitar players out there, and then you get Taylor Swift who strums guitars and does a little bit of fretwork. Yeah, it absolutely infuriates me. It really depends on who's the person that's voting. Swiftie has got enough votes, etc., that she could do it. However, she wasn't able to swing the election votes. There you go. That's something to say. So music is life. What do you reckon if she'd have run for president? Would she have won? She probably would. Taylor Swift could have won for president and beaten Donald Trump. You never know. Because that's what it takes. Is she has so many millions and billions of people that follow her that she could have. She should in theory. I mean, when you've got like when Kamala Harris pulls out. What she had Beyonce came out. She had all these different musicians came out, and Bon Jovi spoke out, and you've got these musicians talking out. And in theory, does that sway your fans? If you are fanatical, if you are music is life, and you're locked into it, would that be enough to sway your opinion on things outside of music? And I wonder if so. Like if the guy from Sleep Token, if he started being political, would that be enough to sway people? I mean, the fact that Sleep Token is, they talk about it as the worship and the service. It's not concerts, it's the service. I mean, that's a really interesting law that they built up around them. Anyway, it's definitely got some staying power for Sleep Token, and there are people that literally... We had them on the ADK channel. We had some Sleep Token fans talk about their experience with Sleep Token and why they got into Sleep Token, and how that music connected on a way that others didn't, because it was so emotional. It allowed them to feel part of something that they felt disconnected from. And I think we referred it to music for the broken, is how we referred it. So if you're someone who is broken, that music spoke to you. Now I don't class myself as broken. There are days where I feel a bit broken. There are days when I wake up and think, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do any more ADK. I don't want to do YouTube anymore. I don't want to do radio. I don't want to be in a band. I don't want to do anything. I just want to stay in bed. And there are days when I feel like that. But I also can identify that I know what those days are. I can realise that is just a partial chemical imbalance in me. Probably a lot of that could be just down to poor diet, and a lot of it is down to poor diet. I find I feel really low if I've not been eating a lot of protein in my diet, if I've been eating too much sugar in my diet. If I have those two things, then for the day when I wake up, I feel really rough, I feel run down, I have no energy. Sorry, look, this is one of those days. This is why I'm on protein this morning, because although I ate yesterday and I didn't eat healthily, I have to be honest, but I ate quantity, drank plenty of fluids, and yeah, I felt like absolute death this morning. And I thought, well, Why do I feel crap? I thought, oh, I haven't taken my multivitamins, which I do try to remember to take, and I forgot to take those. My gout's playing up. There you go. There's a lovely thing to share with you. But I'm on gout medication, which hasn't happened in ages, and now my feet are hurting today. Started hurting yesterday, and I think there's probably sugar that's caused that to flare up, and some red meat that I ate. So things like that can also change your mood. So I'm not saying that all depression is down to poor diet. It's not. God, I'm tired. Jesus, it's exhausting. See, I tell you, my brain's. I didn't think I was to talk about depression, but we're talking about depression. Yeah. So why is depression? Music life, can live music get you out of depression? It can. I think music, it doesn't get you out of depression. It can alleviate some symptoms. So there are songs that I listen to that make me feel upbeat, but I have to be receptive to them at the time. So if I'm feeling really low, putting on a upbeat, happy song is not going to get me out of that mood. But putting on a somber song that's introspective or something like that is actually just going to make me even worse. Best thing I can do if I'm feeling low is go and have some fruit juice. Go drink some water. It's amazing how much simple things like that can actually make you feel better. Don't have caffeine, because caffeine just makes you feel more wired and makes you feel off or a little bit unbalanced. Interesting. Don't know where I'm going with this. I have no idea where I'm going with this. Oh yes, we're talking about music. Oh, these early mornings, I don't know what to do. But music life and everything in between, music meaning everything for you. And I don't know if I can comment for other people, because this is why I find it interesting. Because so me, Andy, and Kirk over on ADK, we all like very different music. There are certain songs we actually all like, but they're few and far between. So, and we don't understand why that is sometimes, because we all like heavy music, we all like heavy guitar stuff, but why is it we listen to the same song and it means so much to Andy, means nothing to me, and Kirk can kind of appreciate it a bit but doesn't really get into it? So I can, and I'll hate it, but and then there'll be some song that I think is absolutely amazing, Kirk thinks is pretty basic and repetitive, and Andy just thinks it's boring. But we all like the same thing, so it can't just be down to, oh, you like heavy metal because you like big drums and heavy guitars. And we're like, well, it can't be just down to that, and it can't just be down to the vocal delivery either. There's got to be something in the songwriting. But why? Why is it that I like something and Andy doesn't like the same thing? We're both into heavy music. We're both into heavy metal bands. So surely we should just like all heavy rock and heavy metal, should we? Or is it the amount of experience? So could you tailor from birth someone's preferences? So you probably could. I mean, if you had a young, and we've seen it with people in their cars, people play metal in their cars and their kids grow up and they've got a fascination with metal. I was never brought up with metal. I never started listening to metal until I was in high school. I find it hard to remember exactly what I listened to. I remember having, as a child, I had a record player. So I do remember having a record player. There were chart songs on there. Earliest thing I can remember as a kid was my dad, may he rest in peace, gave me something like the best of Showaddywaddy. Now, if you don't know, have a clue, I know you just put, what's he just said? Is it something out of Mary Poppins? Showaddywaddy, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Showaddywaddy were a UK-based rock and roll band that I can't remember what they weren't mods. They were something boys or something they were called. There was a certain look. They wore these big old bright coloured suits. Like they weren't zoot suits. I can never remember what they're actually called. But they were like big old oversized like coloured suits. And And I'd sing songs like Do Wah Diddy Diddy Dum Diddy Do and Under the Moon of Love and stuff like that. And some of them would be covers of other people's songs and stuff like that. Like I remember them doing Blue Moon and stuff like that. And it was basically classic rock and roll. And that's what I got as a kid. And then I remember coming across things like Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers. Now, if anyone doesn't know what that is, that was basically a mashup before mashups were such a thing. And it was, I remember getting them on... They were the 45-inch singles, and it would have Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers. Come on, everybody, clap your hands. And it was, again, rock and roll tracks that had been mashed up and turned into like a 4-minute song or whatever it was. And I remember those, they were all good. Songs like the mashups would include things like Let's Twist Again, like we did last summer, yeah, let's twist again, like we did last year. But that's what I grew up with. I grew up with rock and roll. My dad was into the Shadows and Cliff Richard, and in the house when the radio was playing, it would be Capital Gold, I think it was. I think it was Capital Gold, and that would all just play golden oldies stuff. It wasn't any modern chart stuff, so I didn't listen to chart stuff ever. I don't remember ever listening to chart stuff until I was able to sort of buy. I remember getting like a tape player and stuff, and then going out and I was able to listen to the radio, and I didn't really listen to it, but I think my exposure to like chart music would have been Top of the Pops. So again, if you're not from the UK, Top of the Pops was basically the most important day of the week. I think, was it a Thursday evening? It's like Thursday evening, 6 o'clock or something like that, or 7 o'clock it was in the evening for 30 minutes, and you would get the breakout songs of that week, and then you get the top 10 rundown with the number one song being played at the end of the show. I mean, we had other things on here. We had, what was it called, The Tube, later with Jules Holland. So there were some other music programs, but nothing was as popular as Top of the Pops. But that was where, and occasionally they'd put on rock bands and stuff like that. I remember the first time I coming across something like No Doubt's Don't Speak was on there. Lips and My Worst Enemy was the first time I heard that band was on there, and there was a few others on there. I mean, Metallica played it. They did. I remember them playing Memory Remains on stage with Mariana Faithfull on Top of the Pops. Not like a cut where they cut to a live performance, which is what they did with the song Hero of the Day off of Load. I'm trying to remember if that's the right one. But when they cut that one. They cut that to a festival, a live show performance. But in this case, they did. This was in the studio, and so this is when I would gain it until I actually started earning money, and I started doing a paper round at the age of 12. I would want to say, so I could earn my money each week. So I earned about £13 or £13 sterling. For those of you at home, I earned that a week. I'd go out 7 days a week, take me about an hour and a half every morning to deliver all the newspapers. I did that from about the age of 12 to the age of 15, 16, something like that. Every morning I'd pick up someone else's route if they needed, if like one of the other paper boys phoned in sick, and I'd earn my money so I could go out and I could buy some singles. And that's where I started to find out about bands like Skin. And I think the first band that I ever came across, and that was because of On Top of the Pops, and this is where I actually know my segue into my rock music properly, where I started getting into like the heavier, and this isn't a heavy band in that sense, but definitely started to get me into like that foot through the door of the heavier stuff. And it was like 1990, I want to say 91, 92 era, somewhere around there. And Def Leppard had just dropped Adrenalize, and it was the single, it was On Top of the Pops, and it was Let's Get Rocked. And they had this cool animated video for it. At the time I thought it was really cool. Nowadays it looks cheesy as hell, but back then it was like, wow, this is amazing. Really catchy, really boppy along, and it does, listening back to it now, remind me of some of the old rock and roll kind of vibes to it. But it was just big bombastic. So it was a good blend of rock and roll and pop, and that kind of got that. got the single, and then went and got the Adrenalize album. Loved the Adrenalize album. There's some great stuff in there, and I was in high school at the time. And then got into groups of friends of mine who were also into sort of like rock and stuff. And I remember one of our friends who was in our group was trying to get me to listen to Deicide and Cannibal Corpse, and I was like, what the hell? This isn't music, this is just noise. No, we left school at 1994, I think. Was 94, I would say, is the area that we left school. But in the year, was it 1993, we were at school. Somehow, our friend who was into Deicide, etc., managed to get concert tickets for, I think it was 4 of us that went, for Cannibal Corpse. Can't remember who the other band was. There was a main support band, and Samael were on the bill as well. Samael were phenomenal, and I absolutely loved that band ever since. And that was my first experience. I was a 14 or 15 years old. We were at a death metal gig. It was in a place called the Marquee in central London. That's now become the Montague and Pike pub, and it did change to be. And you can still see some of the original features that made it a venue. But I remember it as a venue, and went in there, stage dive in, getting on stage with the band and just throwing yourself off during Cannibal Corpse's set into the pit. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal as a 14, 15 year old. And that was my baptism to go from Def Leppard into the extreme stuff. Never really listened to Cannibal Corpse, did get a couple of albums trying to get appreciated, but never really understood them. But did get into Samael, and I think they're a phenomenal band. Great albums from that band. And then from there, Metallica was our next kind of route, and then the Sandman, and then you start spiraling. You start going down into the Megadeths, the Anthraxes, Slayer, and then from that point onwards, it was a case of me and my friends all kind of split in different directions as we found. I went more down the classic rock route of the Def Leppard, so I started getting into Whitesnake and Thunder and FM. FM, great band. If you've never checked out FM, phenomenal band from the 80s. Still touring, which is amazing as well, but they are just, you got to go check them out. So yeah, that's where I went with it. Now I don't know, as a teenager and then going into my 20s, was music is life quite pop. I don't think I'd ever like do anything particularly for it. I didn't live for music, but my life did revolve around that and drugs. And well, not drugs, that's drink, I would say, probably more than drugs in that sense. But in that age of my thing, it was work during the week, play PlayStation, maybe play some drums, get the original band together, jam and try and learn some Sepultura, do some covers of like Chaos, like Refuse Resist or something like that. And then weekend would just be basically Friday and Saturday night, absolutely paralytically drunk, and then hung over the next day. So you literally would just do nothing those days because you'd be wiped out. And if you were lucky, you booked some concert tickets, and I did probably throughout the mid 90s. I did more concerts than I did ever in my later life. But in the 90s was my time for going to gigs, whether that was local gigs, discovering bands, or new metal bands, or bands like Kill to This, Vacant Stare, 1 Minute Silence. The UK scene was phenomenal back in the 90s. Touring bands like Drain STH came through, Scrap Iron Scientists, just absolutely loved the UK scene and checking out bands. So we had some amazing times there. And then writing, playing, doing like just learning my craft as a drummer. But it didn't change my life. I think in the back of my head, I was constantly thinking that maybe it could change my life if our band it could get better and we could gig, and we were still in that mindset of, yeah, we could be a band. We're never good enough to be a proper like band. We never committed ourselves in that sense, and I think that's where the big difference is. That there are people out there that will fully commit and write off everything else. They commit their time, their finances into promoting their band because they want their band to be the big thing, because music means so much to them. Or is it a case of they can't face the idea that they would have to go and do a normal living? Could that be it? That's kind of, I see, I kind of brought myself back to the point there about does music is life, and is it truly that way? I honestly don't know, but I think there are people that, I mean, for someone like Lars Ulrich, Metallica, music, saying to him that music is life is a true thing, but he went for a big stage like in the early 2000s, before, when they were doing St. Anger and stuff. He was more into art and everything else. Music was just something he did. So at that point in time, music was not something he really wanted to do. Sorry, bear with me on the radio part of this, and I'm just having a drink again. Right, thank you. I need that. Yeah, so I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I think like for Lars, music was life in the early days, but I don't know if it's a passion or is it a case of it's just a business for him. Because music is life for those that need it to work, but it's not, doesn't mean that much to them and from the soul. I mean, Lars, you could say, like, for instance, all the guys in Metallica could easily just not do music again. And in some cases, I wish they would, or at least they'd stop writing, because they haven't written anything good for a long time. In my personal opinion, there are some people that absolutely love, especially like 72 Seasons. There are people that love that album. The stuff I've heard of for 72 Seasons, I'd actually probably put it behind St. Anger, in all honesty, because it's just boring. I do find 72 Seasons just a really boring album. It's uninspired. It doesn't have anything new or original from the band to do. At least with St. Anger, they went off. They tried some different stuff. Whether it worked or not, at least they were trying to be. It's a train wreck of an album, but it's at least mildly interesting. I mean, 72 Seasons is definitely better than Lulu. I'll put it that. So at least they've achieved that much, but. Music is life. Music is a lie. I was gonna say, do you know what? I don't think music is life. Music is a crutch. That's what I'm gonna say. Music is a business, but people use music as a crutch, definitely. I use music in the car to while away the time, because otherwise it's just really boring just driving in silence. There are some times that music makes me feel emotional. What weirdly, REM's Everybody Hurts, that one does. That one always gets me. And I couldn't tell you why. There's not when I feel emotional, I feel teary at the end of it, and I'm not thinking about anything particular. It's just such an outpouring of emotion. I think it's great. The other one I really like is, and I've talked about this song many times, is the was it the OJs and the song Love Train. Love that song. It's such an upbeat, positive mental. People all over the world join hands, start a love train, a love train. Great song, absolutely phenomenal song. It's so positive. Cheesy. I mean, you could say it's cheesy, but it's just such a good positive mindset that it puts out there. So I really enjoy that. But my life hasn't changed because I feel that way, or I've listened to that song. If I didn't talk about music on ADK, or didn't do it on Dave Does, I could talk about something else. I mean, I could say that because music is more important to me than video games, I'm not interested. I play video games. I actually do play video games more for a distraction, so I do them of like an evening for a couple of hours if I get a chance, mainly because I might be so exhausted mentally from dealing with emails, the ADK channel. Recently, excuse me, it's still early. I've only got half an hour in, but I'm still tired. I get tired in the evening from things like dealing with all the radio station recently, and there's a lot of chasing up. There's bands. We've got ADK Present shows over in the UK, so having to chase bands up, make sure we've got promo activity going on Facebook channels and other socials as well that we're talking about the gig. We're constantly trying to build followers up on socials, because it's great to post stuff on socials, but if you have no followers, or your follower count's quite low, you're not actually going to get very far. So you need to build followers so that when you do post stuff about your show, people see it. So there's all these things that I've got to kind of micromanage. Plus I have my dog, which is Smudgy, who's kind of sitting over in the background over round that way somewhere, on the sofa sleeping, because we've been out for morning walks already. This is why I get up at 3:30, get out, take the dog for a walk, bring him home, have breakfast, and then start these videos and stuff and start editing. And then we've got to go out for walks later in the day. So by the time I get even, I'll play a game, but I don't think I could be bothered enough to put any video play, because this is the thing I don't understand with like the video game channels. What are you actually showing people? Like how to play the game well? Or are you showing them where hidden sections are on the video? I'm not quite sure why there's video content about it. Now people could say, well, why would you do video content talking about songs or reactions? I completely agree. I don't know why we do reactions. I honestly don't know why reaction format exists or who would want to watch it. Well, actually, I do know who wants to watch reaction channels. So the people that want a reaction, and this is where reaction channels fall apart. And mine did. Dave Does as a reaction channel fell apart a couple of years back. And that's because no one wants an honest reaction. If they're being genuinely honest, if I was to ask people that watch reaction videos about honest reactions, they'll say, oh no, we always want the reactor to be honest, it's important that they're honest. No, you don't. What you want is someone to say that the band that you like, because if I'm reacting to Sleep Token, what you're really hoping is that I'm going to say, this is amazing, this has made me feel a certain way, because then you feel, there's someone who understands me, there's someone who gets me, there's someone who feels how I feel about this band. If I go, I don't get this song, I don't think it's very well written, in the sense that the structure doesn't make as much sense, or I think it's overindulgent, you're going to go, you're an idiot, you don't understand it, you're rubbish, you don't understand how to do a reaction. And that's the problem. To be a successful reaction channel, you've got to be generally hyped up, positive, but you don't want to do that all the time. You've got to throw in some negativity, but you've got to throw it in a creative, constructive way while still praising the group. It's a really fine balance, because people will see through you. If you just hype up everything like, oh my god, what did I just watch, people will lose interest in your channel very quickly, because they realize that you're being disingenuous. So you have to balance those two out there. I could never do that, because I just say it as I see it. So if I'm watching a video and I'm just like, this just feels like you're copying other bands, it's not very good, it's basic, they may be playing their instruments brilliantly, they may have a great production on the song, but if it just sounds like every other band out there, I'm going to call it as I see it. Now unless they're an originator, and that's the thing, if they were the originator of it, and I've heard other bands that have imitated them, that's a bit different. I'm trying to think of bands like, so you could say that about Sabbath. So Sabbath sounds like Sabbath. There are many bands after them that sound like Sabbath. Now, I'm not going to complain for Sabbath about sounding like a band called Sleep that came out in the 90s. I'm not going to say Sabbath, oh my god, Sabbath's new album. If they were to bring out an album today and you go, oh, that sounds just like that album by Sleep, you go, well, hang on, Sleep sound like Sabbath. So no, it doesn't matter that this album came out after Sleep's. The fact that Sleep's one, it sounds exactly like Black Sabbath. In the first place, I'm going to criticise Sleep, and we did. We actually reviewed the song Dragonaut by Sleep the other day, and it could have almost been a two-word review, and it was like Black Sabbath. There was nothing original about it, and I think what frustrated me about that one was that everyone was saying how, at the time when they came out in like the mid or early 90s, everyone was talking about like they got signed to labels and how they were amazing and breaking boundaries, and they called them genre defining. They defined stoner doom, and I'm like, you can't define stoner doom like that. You sound exactly like Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath was stoned half the time, and you sound like their first 3 albums. So surely Black Sabbath defined it. Maybe it was just the wrong time when they came out, but that's what they sounded like. At the time when, obviously in the 90s, Black Sabbath sounded very different. So you could say that they were now no longer sounded like that, but they still started it. So I had very little positive to say about Sleep, in all honesty. And it's a band that unless someone really kind of says we need to go back and they've done something that separates them and gives them their own identity, there's no real reason to go back to them. I'll just listen to Sabbath if I want to get my Sabbath vibe on. Where am I going? Music is life. I keep going back to this because maybe we should focus more on the everything in between, which I do. That's where my tangents come on. But music is life. Music is life. I generally don't think it is. I think music is part of life. Music is a crutch. Music is a distraction. But for some people, music is obviously their life. And for those people, they need more help. I just think they need more. There's got to be more to life. There's more to life than everything. I mean, you're only on this world for a certain amount of time. You've got a limited amount of years. It's infinitesimal. This is why people have kids, I think, is because at least they feel that when they get to the end of their life, they can go, when I die, at least my kids will be here and they will continue. I will have contributed something. So for me and my wife, Anna, we don't want children. So I know hopefully, if at least another, what am I, 46? Yes, I'm 46. I'm hoping I've got another 40 years in me. But that's it. And then all my stuff will get either dumped or given to my nieces and nephews, and I'll have to come and clear the house out of all the crap I've got in here. And there'll be nothing left for me to partake on this world. There'll be no kids to carry on my legacy, to talk about what I've done. And that always I think that sort of mentality for me is helpful in the sense of making me go, well, what is it I'll be known for? If you were to go back and go, you think about people through the ages, and they go, the inventor of this, the inventor of that, who's achieved this. I'd much rather be known as someone who got involved in the music scene, did something. So whether that's a successful YouTube channel, which will be a fat chance to be quite honest, but we still go down that route. We launched a brand new series recently called Broken Down and Pulled Apart, and that's literally where we dissect the songs personally. Videos are lasting around about 30 minutes for a 4-minute song, because we discuss and we debate these tracks in much more detail. It's not a reaction. We've watched the videos in advance, we make our notes separately, we break them into 1-minute blocks in our notes, and then we come back, we play a minute of the song for the viewers at home, and then we talk about the track. For that minute section about how the song's building, where it's going, what did we feel at the time. So it's much more than a reaction, but we go in it with, sometimes we're like, this is a great song, sometimes we're like, this is meaningless and pointless, but we'll always be completely honest about how we feel. And we know that it's a very niche market. There are very few people that are going to want to watch it, but it's what we enjoy doing. But that is changing. We are changing things on the channel. So again, I want ADK to be some sort of legacy in the long run, whether that be through the live band promoting, whether that be the radio show, whether that's the YouTube channel, whether that's as we expand out and go into band management is a topic we have talked about, but again, financially we've got a few things around that. ADK PR is something we've talked about, but again, we've got to look into that. We've got a lot more work to do around these areas, but again, all of it is building up an ADK kind of brand, etc., and that's something I do want to do. But then I've got things like Telescribe, which I'm gonna have a slurp of my drink before I talk about that. This wasn't meant to be an hour of me promoting, by the way, but yeah, so things like Telescribe, again, I've got Nothing Gained under my belt, and so people could go back and listen to the 2 albums, Nascent and Hollow Rhetoric. I'm still proud as punch of what we did in the early 2000s with those two albums. And now we've got Telescribe and we've got Volume 1. Again, proud as punch of what I did with that album. And we're writing the album 2 as we go. So I can be proud of my involvement in music. I can be proud of what I'm attempting to do for local grassroots music and the brand itself, ADK for me, Andy and Kirk. It annoys me when I get called an arsehole by some people for some reason. I always try to understand why. What is it about what I do that annoys you or frustrates you? Because I never, this is the thing, so within the musical scene I never go out to kind of attack people or specifically go out of my way, but there are some people that are dumbasses, and I do call them out for being dumbasses. But that's only because they've usually run me up the wrong way in the first place. So but I've been called manipulative. That was an interesting one, and I didn't understand why, because I was trying to do some stuff with the local scene, and it was all about I had been manipulating people to try to boost the ADK channel. I'm like, well, I haven't. How does doing stuff with the local scene boost the ADK channel? If anything, it diminishes. If I focused on big bands, that would actually help me a lot more than it would focusing on the grassroots. But we wanted to do grassroots because we thought we could do something to put a spotlight on the scene. Doesn't actually benefit us in the slightest in that sense. So yeah, I don't know, I always get into those, but where have I gone? I've lost my tangent again. I wonder, for people with music is life, back to music in life now, whether or not when you're, are there days where these people at music is life, we talked about depression and so forth, because I'm like, there are days when I absolutely love, like this evening I'm in rehearsal studio with Tellers to work on some new stuff, and we've not been in the studio for a few months because just everyone's been busy with other projects and stuff like that. So we're back at the studio for the first time in about 3 months since we last played. Actually, I think the last time we played in October. Yeah, 4th of October was the last, and we rehearsed just before that. So yeah, a couple of months now, and back in the studio. And there are days where I love the idea. I'm all hyped up for it. Today I just feel exhausted, and I just like, yeah, I could take it or leave it. I could easily just kind of phone it in and just speak to him on the phone and go, look, can we just send ideas round and just all work on our stuff separately? Do we need to be in the studio? But then there are other days where I just want to be in the studio and just working with the guys and the Telescribe lot and just working and stuff. So I wonder if people, whether they generally say music is life. Is there days where like it's more of a saying of music is life, except for today, where actually I just want to sit in bed and watch a movie? Surely you can't be on. I think if you were to do 365 days a year and music is your entire life, you've got to hit a wall. We've seen this with bands. Who it was the singer from? Is it Tommy Vexed from Bad Wolves, who had to take time out of his tour because he was just struggling. He was not just from a physical ailments, because being on the road all the time, it's got to be physically draining. Living on tour buses, not great. You're not sleeping properly. You're not eating properly. Your body's out of sync. I mean, because you're burning so many calories on stage every night. You've got to be like on top shape. But then mental exhaustion as well. And I do understand the mental exhaustion piece, because I find this every time I go into the winter. I shut down from doing like the gardening business I do throughout the rest of the year, and then I go into 3 months of working from home doing music videos or whatever it might be. But this year it's all been about obviously ADK radio launch and all that lot. And every morning getting up, and I'll do content creation and go through the emailing bands back and forth. And I just get to the point, I'm like, do you know what, today I don't want to touch this. I don't want to go anywhere near anything to do with ADK. I want to turn my phone off. I've just had enough today. I'll be fine. And I know that in the back of my head, I'll be like, I know I'll be fine. I just need to take a bit of a break and focus on something else. I want to go for a walk somewhere. It's a nice sunny day. Let's just get out of the house and just have some food, watch a movie, do nothing, catch up on some sleep, and I'll be fine. And then I will allocate some time the next day, and I'll be like, next day I'm going to work on it. And today's one of those days. Yesterday I did very little because I just was not in the mood. And then today I was like, I'm going to allocate the morning to doing ADK stuff. And once I've done that, the rest of the day I've got to telescribe in the evening. I've got a bit of work to do on some stuff for that. And then after that, what's tomorrow, Wednesday, probably will do a little bit of ADK stuff Wednesday, but I'm really kind of like switching off now and had enough. And sometimes you need that. So I don't get how music can be life all the time. It's got to be. I think that saying doesn't work. I think I don't know, you're going to have to let me know. People are going to have to let me know on this topic. We've only got like 10 minutes left, so maybe I should talk about something else. Should we talk about something about everything in between? Oh, I needed that. God, my throat was killing me after all that. What else can we talk about today on the Music Life and everything in between episode 3? Okay, bands. Here we go. Coming up with band names. I don't get the concept of people coming up with band names. The amount of band names we see now. I mean, is it because there's just so many bands out there that all the decent names are already gone, and you can't just call yourself the same name as someone else nowadays? Or can you? I mean, here's the thing: could you call yourself a band name of another band out there, as long as they haven't released anything? So let's say you wanted to call your band, I don't know, Tomahawk, and you're from the UK, but there's a band in Germany called Tomahawk. Can you get away with calling yourself that, or do you have to call yourself Tomahawk UK? Or if the German band hasn't released any music, you can call yourself Tomahawk, and then it's a case of who gets to release their music first and then ask the other one to not do it. Because some of the band names I've come across, we do this with videos, we'll get press releases for bands, and I look at them and none of them catch my attention. None of them anymore. They're almost artistic stylizations of ideas for... It's like they've taken them from a lyric or something. They've gone, that'll work. And you go, but it means nothing. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not envisioning a sound or a style or anything about that. And it's one of the reasons why we picked the name Telescribe very carefully. We threw loads of ideas for the band name out. Can't remember any of them off the top of my head now, but Telescribe came together because it meant something for us. We were able to clearly articulate the tellers of stories and the writers of stories, i.e. Telescribe. That made a lot of sense to us. That's why we went down that band name. But some names that we see, not so much actually, weirdly, not so much on the local scene, but in actual released bands, and a lot of them in the European market, are just so obscure that they mean nothing. So we just kind of gloss over them. And we'll look at like the new releases each week to see what's coming out, and there are some really good albums in there if you can be bothered enough to go and actually listen to them. But there are so many new albums, new singles. Bands send us stuff every single day. Please review this, please check that out. Now, reviews we just don't do. It takes far too long to do the video, far too long to put the content out, and it's only really the only people that are going to watch a review of a unknown band are people that know the band, so it doesn't do anything for us to do them, so we just don't. We're happy to put a press release and a link to a video for that band on the website. I'm more than happy to do that, but as far as an actual breakdown review, unfortunately we can't do those. Right, finish my drink. So, someone asked me the other day actually about why don't I do collaboration videos anymore, and that's a relatively easy one to do. I haven't found any collaborator people to do covers with or do cover songs with. I'm not afraid to go away and do them. I'm quite happy to go and do some, and there are sometimes opportunities. I did one a few months ago with Jess. Mancuso, and she does some lovely Indonesian stuff, collaborations with Alec Bhatar and Dimas Senapati and stuff like that. Similar sort of films that I do, but she's much more piano classical playing versus rock metal. I played bass on one of her songs, which was quite fun to do because I don't normally do bass support. I usually do the drums, but she had what's his name? Wave Potter, I think, is the drummer from YouTube. He was doing the drums for that particular one. He's a great drummer as well. So yeah, we that was a good fun one for us to do. Yeah, I don't have a particular reason. No songs come along that I thought, yeah, that I can do that and have fun with it. Although I did one with what did I do? 3:15 and Stuck, which I did a what would it sound like with heavy guitars, which was just something that popped into my head. But yeah, I don't really do those, and drum covers and stuff like that I don't really do anymore because I can't really tell you why. I thing that pops in my head is I just can't bother to do them. This just really is as simple as that. I'm just like, I'm just not that bothered. You've got to have a passion for these things. You've got to have a passion in life if you really want to get things done. Sometimes you can be completely lack of any form of passion and you just like, sod it, I just want to stop for a while. And that's what I did back in 2014 with music. I stopped playing. I didn't pick up guitar or play drums for at least 2 years. So I think it was 2016 again when I first started working on some new material, because I'd basically just, with nothing gained, when we lost after losing Paul at the end of 2012, we continued with a guy called Dave O'Sullivan, came in on bass for 2013. We continued, we did a few shows and stuff like that. It wasn't the same vibe though. The chemistry wasn't quite there. Dave was a lovely guy, but we just didn't have that group mentality, and we started fracturing as a group. And then at the end of 2013, when M announced she was pregnant and was taking, I don't know how far along she was in the pregnancy on this one, but she decided to leave the band, focus on the pregnancy rather than go through the whole thing again. She said, look, I'm going to step away. If you want to get another vocalist in, that's fine. So she left, and then Davo left because it wasn't really for him, leaving just me, Andy and Use. And then we kind of were like, let's try and build, let's focus on getting the vocalist in. We got a guy called James Marshall in, but he was completely different to obviously Emma vocally. So we were like, well, let's work on new material, and then maybe we can give him the old tracks, but we will redo the vocals on all the albums. Was kind of how we thought about it, because we were like, he can't sing it the same way that Emma does, and so we need to rethink about how we do this and rethink the brand. And we did some work with James, and he was a nice guy. We did a couple, I think we did 2 rehearsals, and he came around and he recorded some ideas at my house, but it just never really clicked. Andy there was things going on in Andy's personal life where his priorities had changed. Music in life was no longer the big thing, because for a while for Andy, music was life. It was literally, that's what we did. We worked on music all the time, me and him. We talked about the band. If he wasn't working in his job, we would talk about the music. And then obviously in the relationship, that changed, which is fair enough because you've got bigger priorities at that time. And so for him, music was no longer life, and so we kind of split. And I think after that I felt so burnt out from the whole experience that I just decided to take a couple of years out. I just had no passion for it. Focused on just doing my job, and then I started in 2016. I started coming up with ideas and doing some drum covers. I started wanting to play again, which was fun. I enjoyed playing. So I think I started doing some drum stuff, and then I started writing some guitar new songs, and started doing the Project 42 thing, and then from Project 42 that kind of then I did the whole first album, The Meaning, which is, it's interesting because The Meaning actually has Raising the Dead which appears on the Telescribe album. So there you go. So it was actually released on The Meaning before it was released by Telescribe. It's the same song. Some of the lyrics have changed, but musically it's pretty much the same. It's just different guitar part over the leads mainly, but the main riff's the same. So there you go. Telescribe and Project 42 come together. Right, I think we're almost done for the hour. I think I've talked enough. Don't worry, you don't have to deal with this again for another week. After this, we've got some more rock and metal. I'm not sure if it's if it's all rock or metal all the time after this, or if we have a show scheduled for you. But at least this is the only talk show on the channel, apart from the discussion hour. So obviously we have the ADK discussion hour every hour of the day. I think that's between 12 and 1. So if you like the sort of chatting stuff, go check that out. But thank you very much for joining me today, and I will see you again next week. Take care.